and welcome to this new tutorial on process mining with ProcessMind. In order to start, for process mining we always need some data. If you don't have some for this demo example, you can always download one from our website, but of course we prefer you to get your own. So for this example I already prepared one, and let's start and upload my CSV file. Once I selected the CSV file, the file will automatically be preprocessed and uploaded to our data store. There it will be processed for process mining and be ready to use in our dashboards, where I can really start analyzing my data. So let's wait 1 second before it's being processed. So you already can see here on the right button that the data has been processed and the model has actually been created already in the background. If I want to see the data itself, how it had been processed, I can open it or open it from my data site and see how all my activities and cases and times, etc. are mapped automatically detected by the system. If I want to change anything, let's say I want to have the attributes named in a different way, or I want to have some activities excluded from the system, I can do that by clicking the visibility button, and by that way it will be invisible for the rest of my environment. But let's, for this demo, just keep everything on. If I want to look at how all my raw data was brought into the system, I can also go to my data tab and look at all my raw data that has been loaded into the system. But let's close this for now and let's focus on the model itself. So here you can see the representation of all the activities which you normally get with a process mining tool as well, only vertically aligned. So here you have all the activities and the relations between them, and I can already start looking at some of the data. So for instance, I can see here that I have 16,717 cases, and I can see on the filter side a little bit more information about a number of events, for instance. The first thing I'm going to do is here bring down the activities or the process detail slider, which gives me a better overview of what the happy part of the process is. If I don't like the layout as being going from left to right, I can also position it myself, and in the very near future we have an algorithm that does it automatically for you as well. But for now let's just replace it manually a little bit and making the layout a little bit different. This is of course already bringing me to the next step, and that's saying, hey, converting this to a BPMN model. This gives me more flexibility how the model should look represented to the real business process, but also for my analysis where I can give more info to the model. So the first thing, for instance, is that the model can also stay very stable. So if I filter, for instance, the data, the activities or the main map will not move away. So for instance, I can already show you that here, if I want to add or retract certain activities by showing the detail slider, the information about all the flows and the activities itself will stay very stable to the model. Let's lay out this a little bit more so it looks a little bit better. Here you go. Again, now this is the mind model. If I want to make actually changes to the model itself, for instance by changing the names or changing start activities or decisions or making splits or any other element that you want to add for BPMN, I can do so. But therefore I have to do one more thing, and that is converting this model into the BPMN model itself. I can do that by selecting all the activities by the selecting area over here and then say, hey, add to the model. You see that the line has changed from a dotted line to a consistent line, and now I know that these elements are brought into a BPMN model. So I can already now actually export the model as well as a BPMN model, for instance, where I can also look at it in other tools. But now let's go a little bit more deeper and add some BPMN elements, which will help me to analyze the data a little bit better further on. For instance, if I want to add what my real start of my end of my process is, of course we can detect that already with the data itself, but let's for this example say, hey, I have here a start activity and I want to relate it to my inquiry, which will be my default start. And let's say payment is my end activity. I can easily again drag and drop it and selecting it here by also saying, hey, just let's put a label there, calling it end. Maybe a quick thing to mention is you're seeing the model zooming in and zooming out. So every time you edit something, the system will automatically zoom into the label that you want to edit. So it gives you more precise information what you're doing. Now I set the start and end activity. Now already if I want to get a little bit now information about, hey, of how many cases are flowing from the start to the end, I can already put, for instance, a chart element there showing me the open or closed cases. So what I do then is go to charts, go to cases, and I have here a text attribute called open cases. But actually I don't want to have open cases, I also want to have closed cases. So once I have dragged open cases, I do it again for open cases, and let's say this one is called closed cases. And again, I will not go into too many details about how the chart settings work, because that's a different tutorial. But here I can set the filter on, for instance, closed cases. And now the representation of the open cases and the closed cases show how many activities or how many processes actually have been flown from inquiry to payment. To show that that is really working, I can also say, hey, let's remove this one. I want to attach it to reminder as an end activity and then recalculate. And automatically I now see that the open cases are actually 662 and the closed cases are only 15. If I want to go a little bit deeper, I can also just say, hey, I want to filter on these lines specifically, and I can filter on any attribute that I see in front of me. So for instance, if I want to filter the entire process only on the cases that have been from invoices to a reminder, I can here click the filter button and say directly followed all the activities from invoice and then filtering that one, which will here represents the number of cases that are matching that criteria. All the filters that I add will automatically be shown over here, where I can also visually enable or disable them very quickly if I want to, or remove them entirely. And I can add as many filters as I want to any attribute that has been loaded into the system. Again, a separate topic that I will make a different video of in the future. So now the model is there, the representation is there, but of course I want to do a much deeper research on these kind of data sets. In order to do so, I can go back to charts again and say, hey, I want, for instance, a bar chart, which gives me information about the number of activities. Again, this can be switched to any attribute that I have in my system, or for instance, the area chart, where I get a representation of my cases over time, and I can easily drag and drop, move it around, or say, hey, I don't want to have it automatically set to all the different type. Let's say I want to have it over an month period. I select the month and it will be represented in months, which can automatically be used as a filter as well if I just select it and filter it. Again, a separate topic that will be covered differently. So now all these elements are there and I can really start doing some real deeper analysis on my processes. But of course, this is a tedious job, dragging and dropping all these activities or charts there. I can do it a little bit a faster way as well. So what I do again is I select all these charts here and say delete them, and we have a sort of quicker route. Again, on the left hand side you'll see all the different charts that you can use. There are also presets for instance cases and events or sustainabilities, but we also have bundles. So bundles are a complete set of chart elements with filter settings, etc., focusing on a real topic for process analysis. So I can just drag and drop it over here, or I'll actually lay out a little bit the process model underneath if I want to, which I like a little bit more. And then I have a full representation of all the information already represented in my cases. Let's remove the filters for now, so I see all the totals here. And now I can see all the stats already about this process here on my quick dashboard. Again, every element is just a template, so if you say, hey, I want to move this around, or I want to change the text or the metrics or the colors or whatsoever, that can fully be customized, and I can change any element that I see here. But it gives me a very quick start on creating a dashboard on insights about, for instance, the number of cases, the open cases, the slowest one, the fastest one, activities, and some Gauss charts about the totals as well. So last but not least, we also have here the process model with all kind of insights. Which I didn't mention yet is we have the thickness of the lines. And the thickness of the lines will represent the number of cases in this instance, because that's the metric that has been chosen on how many inquiries has been followed up by a quotation. In this case, 796. If I want to change the metric, click the line and click the metric icon, where I can switch between number of cases, events, cost, etc., or average throughput time. And immediately you will see that now the change of the numbers has changed to the real amount of time that has been spent between 1 and 2. And then you see actually a switch between the payments to inquiry is one of the ones that has taken a lot of time. Of course, I can use that then to go into more details. For instance, I want to filter on this one, saying, hey, everything that's followed by this one or indirectly followed by. Or I can choose to filter on these activity specifics as well. By selecting the activity and then the filter button, I can see here where the cases has been started from, where these activities will lead to, and the throughput times. Again, also a metric where you can select. Or I can select filters saying, hey, I want to have all these cases with this activity or without these activities. And I can actually see also what kind of data has been met from the data set here. So these representations will give me insights about what the quickest or the slowest activity were in the site. Or I can even start going animating this, which gives me a visualization of all the cases that have really run through the system. So every ball is a different case that has been represented by a color, and I can of course forward in time, also pause if I see a certain activity taking a lot of time. When I hover over them, I will give the case ID from it, but I can also click on it, which gives me a timeline of the represented case, which I immediately see why this one was taking a lot of time is because the payment was very slow here, in total 93 days, which is interesting to zoom into probably a little bit more into detail. I can also go in more other areas of the process saying, hey, what's the info there? Or I can even set it here as a specific filter, only zooming on that particular case. And what you see here is again, then I have the model combined with the data. If I only want to have representation of the model, I can see it over here and I can see all the steps that were taken by this one particular case in this order, and again see here that there's a lot of time wasted here from the reminder to the payment option. All right, let me stop here. There will be a lot of more videos coming up very soon, but thank you for watching right now and hope to see you on the next episode. Thank you.